Hi there, this is Anita from Artworks by Anita, and if you'd like to look at some of my artwork, artworksbyanita.com. On Facebook, again, it's Artworks by Anita, and on Instagram, Anita Plucker Art. I'd love to have you visit and see what I do. Let's say that I have my supplies. Now what? So if you're kind of still safe at home and not able to take a workshop at this time, and you really want to get into watercolors, you've got your supplies, now what? The first thing I think that you need to do is learn about your paints and to learn about your brushes, what they can do. First of all, I suggest these are the colors of my palette. And yes, you can kind of see what your tube of paint looks like and what color it is, but you really don't know what it looks like until you get it onto the white sheet of paper and let the white, the bright of the paper show through that color. So this very shows the colors, my colors very well. And over here I did just mix my Hooker's green and my yellow ochre, and look at that lovely green. Here's Hooker's green and my ultramarine blue. Gosh, that's a beautiful blue green, and so on. So play around with your colors, find out what they look like, and start mixing a little bit to find out that. I would say keep it simple. I've mentioned this before, but I have way too many blues in my supply closet, way too many. If you have a fewer number, you're able to know them well, how they work, and which ones are right for your location or what you're painting. So that's a strong suggestion. Keep it simple, okay? Now, talking about your paints and also about color, just a brief lesson on color. The color wheel, if you study it, it's really simple, but it could be at the same time be very complicated. First of all, there are three primary colors. The primary colors are the colors that are used to create all of the other colors. And you can't mix anything to get yellow. Yellow is yellow, the same with red, and the same with blue. But you can mix these colors in different combinations, different amounts to create all of the other colors that you need to. Now think about it. Your printer, your desktop printer that you have, when you buy the inks for them, you're buying the red, yellow, and blue, and black. So clearly you can see that right there you get an example of how you can make all of the other colors using those three colors and a little bit of black. Now, play around with your colors, your paints, and there are 3-4 different ways of mixing to create colors. First of all, there is what is called glazing. Okay, glazing. That is taking a color, painting it on there, letting it dry completely, and then putting another color over the top. And by doing that, you're layering the two colors, you create a third color. So here is yellow, red, and blue. Now I've gone ahead and I've painted a yellow swatch there, and it is completely dry at this time. And so what I want to do is I want to take the red and paint directly over the top of that. These two I'm mixing to create this, and you know, I'm sure, of what you're going to get. You are going to get orange. So you let that dry completely, and at first your brain will say, no, that's yellow and that's red, but as that dries, you can see that that is going to be an orange. Okay, same here. I put the yellow there, and sometimes it might work to put the blue first and then the yellow on top. But if I take that blue, make sure I get the same blue, and I paint over the top, you can see that I get the color green. Okay, and down here, if I mix red and blue, I've already got my blue down there. Now if I take my red and I put over the top of that, this is all dry, you can see that you have the color purple there. So play around with your paints, and that again is called glazing. Painting a color, letting it dry completely, and putting another color over the top of that. Glazing. That's how you can mix colors to make a third color. Another way is just to kind of I just say wet in wet. Okay, basically you just let the colors mingle and mix on their own on the paper, and you can do this when they're wet. So if I take the red and then I take the blue and I kind of paint up next to it, but I just touch. You can already see right there that you've got this purple look. So I can lay a little bit more. And basically what you see then is the colors mixing right on the paper. We still see little bits of blue, we still see pure red, but at the same time we're creating another color there. And that's when you're working with both colors when they're wet. Now, another way is just to mix directly on your palette, where you take I already have some puddles here of the red, and so if I take some of the blue and I mix here, you can see that I am making a lavender or a purple color. So that is directly mixing things together and then painting that color. Okay? Now there is also another way of mixing colors, and it is taking tiny bits of color, putting them next to each other, and from a distance, visually, they will combine. For instance, if I take a yellow, oh, my yellow's a little dirty there. Let's do the red thing again. Let's say red, red, red. And then, if I take that blue again, and if I kind of put them close together, now still up close, our brain, we see red, blue, and so on. But if you back up from a distance, that distance will visually create that color. If you have a bunch of dots, you know, spaced out, and then if you go and you put the red dots in between, very close, very tight, you back up, that space, that little circle right there will look purple. So there are different ways of mixing mixing colors, excuse me. Glazing, wet and wet, that's, you know, mixing next to each other to have them combine on the paper. There is direct, where you mix on your palette, you mix the two colors to form the color, the third color. And I think I juxtaposing. Okay, you know what I mean? Colors side by side, and then from a distance, your eye will visually blend those colors. Okay? So I don't think you ever use one totally. You don't adopt just one, but at different times for different things that you're painting, you will make a decision as to how you want to mix those colors. Okay? One little thing too I wanted to show you. Several years ago, okay, hang on here. When I had my very first print made, the publisher, the printer, gave me what was called the color separations. The color separations. And this was the old stone house, one of my paintings. And years ago, they used to print prints by layering one color over the other. And then he showed me the color separations, how that is done. So, first of all, this is how much yellow was in my painting. And then on top of that is the red, and this is how much red was in my painting. And then this is the blue, how much blue was in my painting. And then just a little bit of black. But look at that, how those three colors and a little bit of black, you have all these different greens, the different blues, the tans, the different browns. You know, they didn't use the brown color. They mixed to create all of that. So that's a good example, a good way of seeing how those three colors and a little bit of black will make all the colors that you need for anything. Okay? So play around with, and here's kind of an example of what I just showed you. This is glazing. I made a yellow, red, and anyway, then I layered colors on top of it. And here's my yellow, here's my red, here's my blue, but here's yellow and blue, which makes green. And here's yellow and blue, which makes green. Here, everything was created with its wet, and you can still kind of see that there's the same thing going on, but it's all blended on the paper when it was wet. And then this is the direct way. I saw that yellow, I wanted yellow. I saw this orange, and so I mixed to try to create that. I mixed to try to create the green. So this was done. This was palette mixing colors. Okay? So practice that. Practice that. That would be a good way to start. Also, I think it's a great idea to play around with your brushes. Okay? Try and figure out what you can do with your rounds. Okay? Hold it, you know, closer to the end, not down here like pencil drawing, but be painterly, okay? But just, you press down and you let up. You press down and let up. You know, just try and see what you can do with your brushes. See how thin. Now this is a larger brush. Just see what you can do with that point. You know, don't press it down and use the heel of the brush. Don't. If you were meant to paint with a stick, you wouldn't need the hairs there. So use the tip of the brush. Use the tip of the brush. You press down, but you're still using the bulk of the brush this way. Okay? Okay. So you can play around with that. You can take a flat, sometimes I call them squares. You might have seen me use the word square because, I don't know, I just sometimes call them squares. But they're pretty nice. You know, I can kind of create a straight edge. See that kind of straight edge there that you can create with a square or a flat. Sometimes I use it for kind of to make weeds. You can use the tip of it. Oftentimes I use the edge of it. Play around with those brushes. See what you can do. Just play around with them. I do suggest that you get a rigger brush. Fine line. Grasses. Okay, so I have my supplies. Now what do? Get to know those supplies. Get to know your paints. Get to know your brushes before really you start doing anything. Okay. A couple of other things you might try to do. Here I have a little rectangle, and the goal was to fill it with the same color from top to bottom, side to side. And that's not real easy to do, so practice that. And then this is a wash. I started out dark, and it gradually gets lighter as it comes down to the bottom. Down here, it's, you know, pretty light. So try and figure out, you know, how to do that. Here in this rectangle, I started out with blue, and with some water brought it down, and then actually I turned it over the other way, and I put some green there, and then lightened it until it kind of met there in the middle. Okay, and that's also playing around. Here's some of the things that I did with my round brush, with the flat brush, with a rigger. So again, play around. Don't be afraid to use your good paper, because you want to find out how these things work on your good paper. If you do these things and practice these things on a piece of regular paper or scratch paper, that's not what you're not learning how it's going to work on your good paper. So this is great, you know, expensive, good paper, but I can see how these things react on that paper and how my paints react on that paper. Okay? Okay, if you ever have any questions, you're welcome to contact me through my website, on Facebook, or through Instagram. I would love to meet you and talk a little bit of art. I think that's going to be all for today. So get those supplies, figure out what you can do with them, and we'll meet again later. Bye.